One is to establish the historical background to the fraud MEDA perpetrated on Ghanaians and how COCECA set out to stop them. And secondly, provide proof that MEDA and IFC were major actors in the current fraud allegations leveled against PDS to ensure they achieved their milestones set out in the Millennium Challenge Compact 2. The original coalition was formed somewhere in July 2016, with the original name being the Coalition Against the Proposed Concession Arrangement for the Electricity Company of Ghana. This group was basically formed when we got evidence that MEDA was using fraudulent means to force stakeholders such as the PURC and Energy Commission to do its bidding. The said fraud was in the form of forged letters on the letterheads and logos of the Public Utility Regulatory Commission and the Energy Commission. In the said fraudulent acts, MEDA, acting with the IFC, wrote and circulated letters purported to be coming from PURC and the Energy Commission, dated 29th and 21st of April 2016, respectively. The draft tariff methodology and the electricity distribution and sales license letters, which were fraudulently authored by MEDA in the name of the PURC and Energy Commission, were both denounced by the respective executive secretaries of both the PURC and Energy Commission in letters dated 6th May 2016, which letters denounced the said tariffs and license as coming from the respective institutions and calling on MEDA to immediately take steps to reverse the said acts. The above acts of MEDA informed the formation of COCECA as originally formed, and from the word go, our work was cut out and clear to fight this monstrous octopus seeking to devour our electricity subsector. Let me also indicate that the IFC was fully active and part of it. The IFC we found had interest in some companies that it had selected as part of the bidders. In 2016, we went to court to stop that action and virtually stop the whole process because we thought it was fraudulent and was pushing Ghanaians into an area that we didn't want. COCECA held our first public engagement on the above subject matter on the 18th of August 2016. That is some 3 years ago. At the press conference, we laid out all the issues and want the government to correct the said acts within 7 days, or else we'll take action. Within the 7 days, it didn't happen. So on the 13th of September 2016, we held a public forum at Alisa Hotel, and at which forum all the major stakeholders, including the TUC, AGI, ECG, PURC, Energy Commission, WACAM, Consumer Protection Society, Imani Ghana, ASEP, the Ministry of Energy, and MEDA were all invited. Prior to the above forum, the group sponsored Mr. Sakasalia here, who sued on behalf of the group, and the rest of it is history. Concurrently, we also had a petition sent to the United States government, and that was to bring into focus the role of IFC and their interests, the conflict of interest situation when it came to the bids, because they had shortlisted 6 companies, and out of the 6 companies, they had interest in 5 of them, and we thought that was not proper. That was a clear conflict of interest situation, and they themselves acknowledged that. So what happens? They write a memo seeking to correct that, and take that, memo goes to government, and the government of the day actually considers the memo at cabinet level and passes it to try to correct the said conflict of interest situation. And we thought that was problematic. So when we went to court, it was both on the IFC and MEDA forging those documents in the name of the PURC and Energy Commission. The above efforts and the results, or the lack of it, led to a change in tactic, to which we brought other stakeholders and civil society organizations under the coalition to help shape the form of the agreement if we couldn't stop it in the end. The new COCECA, that's the coalition of stakeholders on the ECG concession arrangement, was then born. The new coalition had, among others, other members, Imani Ghana, ISODEC, the original coalition, the Workers' Union, AGI, Consumer Protection Society, ASEP, and many others. Note that the new group had membership of various civil society organizations that have their own stance and views on the concession. PDS and ECG, according to the concession arrangement, were to meet 45 condition precedents for the contract for contract effectiveness. We consider 5 of these to be key, and these are: 1, demand guarantee for bulk supply of energy in the sum of $250 million US to cover 3 months' supply of energy. 2, demand guarantee for lease payments of $100 million on $2.5 billion worth of ECG's assets, with a guarantee of $100 million to be posted by PDS. Both guarantees were to be in the form of letters of credit or a bank guarantee by a Class A- bank. Please note that a Class A- bank rating by Standards & Poor's. So the guarantee bank should be at least A- rated by Standards & Poor's to be as such. The word and nature of this guarantee was all stated in the agreement. 3, the monetary protocols between ECG and PDS, which will enable Ghana, through ECG, assess the assets leased to PDS on how they are being utilized, maintained, replaced, and retired. And in the following paragraphs, you will see PDS, the MIDA actually trying to vary this particular arrangement. 4, tariffs, which underpin the financial basis for the transactions with PURC taxed with announcing tariffs in accordance with the rate setting guidelines. And 5, portfolio power purchase agreements that guarantees the concessionaire that a certain quality of energy will be made available for them to supply to consumers. According to the rate setting guidelines, PURC was to announce an increase in tariffs. However, due to delays and changes to the timetable, this adjustment of tariffs did not come on as scheduled. Instead, there was a reduction of tariffs in March 2018, which led to some bidders pulling out of the bid process. Note that the reduction was occasioned by government's renegotiation with the independent power producers over their power purchase agreements, which had been acquired at very high rates under the previous government, and by the fact that government was reviewing gas prices downwards. This was to soften the impact of tariff adjustments on the consumer going forward, when tariffs will necessarily be adjusted upwards in the fulfillment of concession requirements as stated above. The PDS concession arrangement was fundamentally flawed from the onset because it was based on the concept of full cost recovery from word go. However, there is no evidence that this model has worked anywhere else in the world. In Uganda, the only other African country to have implemented this model in the UMEME concession arrangement, the concessionaire was insulated from the risks associated with bulk generation and transmission, as the aspect of cost was taken up by the government. In effect, the government subsidized the cost of generation and transmission and ensured the consumer was not overburdened with this cost. But the investor was also made their money whilst improving the system eventually. The other concession that is quite similar to this is the New Delhi concession. The government had a 5-year program that supported the concession arrangement to improve upon efficiencies during the concession process, which means the government subsidized it for 5 years before cost-effective tariffs were implemented. In the case of Ghana, however, MIDA wanted full cost recovery from the word go through systematic tariff adjustments. PDS, as a new company, had no experience nor the financial muscle to raise the required guarantees mentioned above, purely based on its books and financials. This is the reason why, as part of the guarantee, tariffs were to be adjusted as a condition precedent for the PDS to use the said adjustments to raise the needed guarantees from an A-class bank. Realizing their failure to meet this condition precedent to PDS, MIDA set out to correct its mess by changing the letter of credit or bank guarantee from an A-class, A-minus bank to an insurance guarantee, which itself is a further breach of the terms and conditions of the concession. MIDA, with its advisor, IFC, in furtherance of changing the bank guarantees to an insurance guarantee, in February 2019, held a meeting with the stakeholders, at which meeting MIDA told stakeholders the form and structure of the said insurance guarantee should take, but not the substance. In effect, the actual guarantee was not shown to anyone. However, Downwell Insurance, it stated, was to be the primary guarantor with 5% and Cal Bank as the administrator advising on the insurance guarantee. Al-Qut of Qatar was to hold the rest of the 95%, with the insured amount of $350 million US. Downwell Insurance was to provide 25% of the guarantee, and Al-Qut the rest of the $25 million US. Let me at this juncture throw a challenge to MIDA to provide us any evidence of an insurance bond between Downwell Insurance as a primary insurer and PDS. We dare say there is none. ECG got a copy of the guarantee in February and on its own initiative and contrary to claims by the MIDA, and please refer to last week's letter from MIDA, it states it there, set out to do due diligence on the said guarantee. In a letter dated 28th of February 2019, ECG dispatched a letter to Al-Qut and made two demands in this letter. Demand number 1, confirmation or proof that the signee of the insurance guarantee, called Yahya Al-Nouri, was who he says he is. Then 2, he was authorized to sign as such on behalf of Al-Qut. ECG also found out on Al-Qut's website that its total equity capital was $173.5 million US, whilst its exposure to ECG was $325 million. That is 1.9 times more than its equity capital. Therefore, anyone seeking to commit the company to such an exposure should be duly authorized and properly clothed to do so. There was no response from Al-Qut. On the 15th of March, a second letter was dispatched again by ECG to Al-Qut as a reminder, and no response to this either. Interestingly, Al-Qut responded to ECG's letter dated 28th of February on the 13th of March, and instead of to ECG, sent the letter to MIDA. And then MIDA forwarded the said letter to ECG and claimed the letter from Al-Qut was authentic and the signee was duly authorized to sign on behalf of Al-Qut. Note that MIDA in its recent letter to the media indicated ECG was clothed with the power to deal directly with Al-Qut with regards to the guarantees. And yet Al-Qut chooses to deal with MIDA rather than ECG which had sent the said letters. To the above effect, MIDA, without any due diligence, supported Al-Qut's assertion that Yahya Al-Nouri was duly authorized to sign on behalf of Al-Qut. Unfortunately for MIDA, this correspondence with them was signed by one Osman Haq Musa, Chief Officer, General Insurance. The point to note in all this is that Yahya was committing the company to a contract that was beyond the company's exposure, and yet he, Yahya, in the scheme of things, was a lower rank employee which should raise red flags with little or no due diligence. The shocker, however, in all this is the fact that the signature of Usman Haq Musa in the reply to MIDA was a forged signature. If you look closely at the signature there, it's supposed to be that of Usman Haq Musa. But the real Usman Haq Musa, at a point, responds directly to ECG and sends this, which shows his real signature, and in which all persons duly qualified to sign on behalf of Al-Qud, specimen signatures were attached. And Yahya Al-Nuri's signature wasn't part of it. So it means all the correspondences between Yahya Al-Nuri and ECG and MIDA were largely forged. We have the following questions. Does PDS, Cal Bank, or Danwell Insurance have any letter or evidence to the contrary from Al-Qud, denying all the above issues of forgery and fraud? 2, is there any bond between Danwell Insurance to PDS as the primary insurer? And 3, is the $12.2 million from Cal Bank an ECG account, and therefore ECG's money, or is it from PDS? Did PDS bring any money to this deal? And the $12 million that was paid as the insurance, was it PDS's money or ECG's money? We wish to pray Ghanaians to redirect our anger and efforts at MIDA and IFC, which from the word go have not pursued the interests of Ghanaians. To this effect, we urge the President and the investigations team to extend their investigations to include MIDA and IFC, who are complicit in all this. We also recommend that Mr. Martin Esson Benjamin, the CEO of MIDA, be asked to proceed on leave in order to not tamper with any evidence and investigations into the role of MIDA and IFC in the ongoing matter. We also wish to urge Ghanaians to throw our weight behind the President and the government to implement its decision to suspend and investigate this matter to the end. The decision by the President is a bold one and needs our support. The compact, its success or failure, has foreign policy ramifications as well as consequences on our bilateral relations with the United States and our development partners, who will be looking at how this gets resolved. However, it takes boldness for a president in the face of all this to suspend such a deal and have the right thing done. This is the time to show unity and patriotism. Thank you very much.